Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. This time, we're going all the way to Spain,
Ooh, Spain.
but not for the beaches or the food.
No paella today.
No paella, no siestas, no sangria.
Right.
We are diving into the world of AI regulation,
Okay.
and specifically, how Spain is tackling this really complex issue.
Yeah, it's such a hot topic right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, everybody's talking about AI, and for good reason.
For good reason, it's changing everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, to help us navigate these Spanish AI waters,
I like that
we're
one.
using a legal analysis from a Spanish law firm.
Okay, great.
It's called MCHM Abogados. I hope I pronounced that
Yeah,
correctly.
did great.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of a lay of the land here. What makes Spain's approach to AI regulation interesting or unique?
Well, one thing that really jumps out at me is that Spain is really trying to be proactive.
Okay.
They're not waiting for the EU to, lay down the law.
Right.
They're kind of trying to shape the future of AI, and that's really interesting.
I see. So they're taking the reins a little bit.
Exactly. And they've got this national framework they're building.
A framework.
Yeah, they call it Marco Normativo y Ético para el Despliegue de la AI, which basically means a framework for the ethical deployment of AI.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is, but it's really important because it shows they're thinking about AI not just as a technology, but as something that needs to be used responsibly.
Okay, so it's not just about the nuts and bolts of the tech. It's about...
It benefits everyone and
Right.
doesn't, cause harm.
That makes sense. So how do they plan on achieving that? What are the key elements of this framework?
Well, it all boils down to 4 core principles:
4. Okay, I'm ready.
reliability, explainability, transparency, and inclusivity.
Those are big words.
They are, but they're really important.
Okay, well, let's take them one by one then. What does reliability mean in the context of AI?
Well, it means that AI systems need to do what they're supposed to do reliably.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't want your self-driving car to suddenly swerve off the road.
Exactly. Or, imagine an AI system diagnosing patients. It needs to be accurate.
Right. High stakes.
Exactly. So Spain is calling for rigorous testing and validation of AI systems, especially in those high-stakes fields like healthcare and transportation.
So like real-world testing, not just in a lab.
Exactly. They need to prove these AI systems can operate safely and effectively in the real world.
Okay, I'm with you on reliability. What about explainability? What does that even mean?
That's a really good question, and it's one of the biggest challenges with AI right now.
Yeah, it can feel like a black box sometimes.
Exactly. You get an output, but you don't always know how the AI got there.
Right, and that can be a little unnerving, especially if it's making decisions that affect our lives.
Absolutely. So Spain is pushing for the development of AI systems that can actually explain their decisions.
Well, wait, so the AI has to be able to tell us why it did what it did.
In a way, yes, they're saying we need to be able to understand the reasoning behind AI's actions, even if it's based on complex algorithms.
That's fascinating. But is that even possible? I mean, can you really make an algorithm explain itself?
It's a tough challenge, but it's essential if we want to trust AI and make sure it stays under human control.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess we can't just blindly accept AI's decisions, especially when those decisions have real-world consequences.
Exactly. We need to be able to understand how and why AI is making the choices it's making.
Okay, explainability check. Now, what about transparency? How does that fit into all of this?
Well, transparency is about making the development and deployment of AI open to scrutiny.
Okay, so no more secret AI projects going on behind closed doors.
Exactly. It's about making the data, the algorithms, the whole process visible and understandable.
So it's like saying, hey, this is how we built this AI system. This is the data we used. This is how it works.
Precisely. It's about being open and honest so that people can see what's going on and raise any concerns they might have.
Okay, so transparency builds trust and accountability.
Exactly. And that's crucial when you're dealing with a technology as powerful as AI.
Now, the last principle on our list is inclusivity. What does that mean in the world of AI?
Inclusivity is about making sure that AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Right, so it's not just about creating AI for the wealthy or the tech-savvy.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that AI systems are fair and unbiased and accessible to all.
Okay, so how do they make sure AI doesn't end up discriminating against certain groups or perpetuating existing inequalities?
Well, one key aspect is addressing potential biases in the data used to train AI systems.
Right, because AI can inherit biases from the data it learns from.
Exactly. So Spain is emphasizing the need for diverse and representative data sets to train AI.
So it's about making sure the AI is learning from a balanced perspective.
Exactly. They want to make sure that AI systems are reflecting the diversity of society and not perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
So it's not enough to just build AI, you have to build it responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about Spain's approach. They're really putting ethics front and center.
It's impressive to see them taking such a proactive stance. You know, they're not just talking about ethics, they're actually trying to put these principles into practice.
Absolutely. And that's what sets them apart. They're not just reacting to the challenges of AI, they're trying to shape the future of AI in a way that benefits everyone.
Now, I read that Spain actually has a dedicated agency for AI oversight. Is that right?
Yes, it's called the Agencia Española de Supervision de la Inteligencia Artificial, and it was established just this year by royal decree.
Wow, so they're serious about this. They even created a whole new agency.
They are. It shows how seriously they're taking AI regulation.
So what exactly does this agency do? Do they go around policing AI systems?
Not exactly. Their responsibilities are pretty broad. They supervise AI development, provide guidance to public and private entities, raise awareness about AI, and even offer training programs.
Wow, so they're like the AI guardians of Spain.
You could say that they're there to make sure AI is being developed and used responsibly and ethically.
That's a big job.
Yeah.
And they're also in charge of this thing called a sandbox regulatorio, right?
Yes, that's right. It's basically a controlled environment where companies can test out their AI creations.
Like a playground for AI.
In a way, yes. It allows companies to experiment with AI, identify potential risks, and refine their systems before they're released to the public.
I see, so it's like a safety net to catch any problems before they become real-world issues.
Exactly. And it also allows regulators to get a better understanding of how AI is being developed and used.
That makes sense. So it's a win-win for both companies and regulators.
Precisely. It's a collaborative approach to regulation where everyone is working together to ensure responsible AI development.
Okay, so we've talked about principals agencies and sandboxes, but what about the actual laws? How does Spanish law protect people from potential harms caused by AI?
Well, one of the key aspects highlighted in this legal analysis is how Spanish law emphasizes protecting fundamental rights like privacy and non-discrimination in the context of AI.
Okay, so it's not just about preventing robots from taking over the world. It's about ensuring that AI respects basic human rights.
Exactly. Any AI application has to be assessed for potential rights violations before it can be deployed.
So they're taking a human-centered approach to AI regulation.
Precisely. They're putting people and their rights at the forefront.
It's encouraging to see that they're not just focused on the technological aspects of AI, but also on the ethical and social implications.
Absolutely. And that's what makes their approach so interesting and potentially impactful.
I'm really curious to see how all of this plays out in practice. So in part 2, we're going to delve into specific examples of how these principles are being applied in different sectors.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. So we're back and ready to dig deeper into Spain and AI.
You got it. In part 1, we talked about, Spain's approach to ethical and responsible AI.
Right, all those principles.
And even have that oversight agency and that regulatory sandbox to test out new AI systems.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they're really committed to getting this right.
Yeah, they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're diving right in.
Exactly. And now I think it's time to zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture.
Okay, so what's the bigger picture then?
Well, Spain's influence isn't just limited to their own borders.
Oh, I see what you mean. They're also trying to shape the EU's approach to AI.
That's right. The EU is a major player in the global tech scene. So what they do with AI regulation really matters.
Yeah, and if Spain can help guide those conversations, well, that's a pretty big deal.
Exactly, and it seems like they're already making waves.
Okay, so tell me more about Spain's role in all of this.
Yeah.
How are they influencing the EU's AI strategy?
Well, it goes back to those core principles we talked about, reliability, explainability, transparency, inclusivity.
Right, those are the cornerstones of Spain's framework.
Exactly, and Spain is actively advocating for these principles to be baked into the EU's AI regulations.
So they're not just saying, hey, look what we're doing.
Yeah.
They're actually trying to get the whole EU on board.
That's right. They're participating in discussions, negotiations, all sorts of high-level talks to make sure that the EU's approach to AI is aligned with these ethical considerations.
So it's like they're sharing their expertise and their vision with the rest of Europe.
Precisely. And it seems like other EU countries are listening.
So Spain is kind of becoming a thought leader in this space.
You could say that They're showing the world that it's possible to embrace AI innovation while also prioritizing ethics and human rights.
That's a powerful message. And it's not just empty talk either.
Yeah.
They're actually putting these principles into action.
Absolutely. And that's what makes their approach so compelling. They're not just talking about ethics. They're actually doing something about it.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why of Spain's influence on EU AI regulation.
Right.
But now I want to know how are they actually translating these principles into concrete actions?
That's a great question. And it really gets to the heart of how these high-level principles can actually make a difference in the real world.
So give me some examples. How is Spain pushing for these principles to be put into practice across the EU?
Well, let's start with reliability. Remember that one?
Yeah, that's the whole idea of making sure AI systems do what they're supposed to do consistently and accurately.
Exactly. And Spain is advocating for rigorous testing and validation of AI systems, especially in those high-stakes sectors like healthcare and transportation.
So they're saying no cutting corners when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
Especially when people's lives are at stake.
Right. It's about making sure that these AI systems are safe and effective before they're deployed in the real world.
Okay, what about explainability? How are they pushing for that at the EU level?
Well, Spain is really championing the idea that AI systems need to be able to explain their decisions.
So no more black box algorithms.
Exactly. People have a right to know how AI is affecting their lives, and that means understanding the reasoning behind AI's actions.
That makes sense. We can't just blindly trust AI, especially when it's making decisions that have real consequences for us.
And Spain is arguing that this principle of explainability needs to be built into the EU's AI regulations.
So it's not just a nice to have, it's a must have.
Precisely. And that's a pretty bold stance to take.
So they're really pushing the boundaries here, trying to make sure that AI is accountable to humans.
Exactly. And that's a really important conversation to be having right now as AI becomes more and more powerful.
Okay, we've covered reliability and explainability. What about transparency? How are they advocating for that within the EU?
Well, Spain is a big believer in making the whole AI development process more open and transparent.
So it's about shedding light on the algorithms, the data, the whole shebang.
Exactly. Transparency builds trust, and it allows for greater scrutiny, which is essential when you're dealing with a technology as powerful as AI.
So it's about making sure that AI is developed in a way that is accountable to the public.
Precisely. And Spain is advocating for mechanisms that would make this kind of transparency mandatory at the EU level.
Wow, so they're really trying to change the game here.
They are, and it's exciting to see them taking such a bold stance.
Now, what about inclusivity? How are they promoting that principle within the EU?
Well, Spain is really focused on making sure that AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Right. So it's about making sure that AI systems are fair, unbiased, and don't discriminate against certain groups.
Exactly. And they're pushing for measures that would address potential biases in AI systems and promote diversity and inclusion in the development and deployment of AI.
So it's about making sure that AI reflects the diversity of our society and doesn't exacerbate existing inequalities.
Precisely, and that's a really important consideration as AI becomes more pervasive in our lives.
It's inspiring to see Spain championing these ethical principles, not just within their own borders, but across the entire EU.
It is, and it's a reminder that we have a choice in how we develop and use AI. We can choose to prioritize ethics and human rights, or we can choose to ignore those considerations.
And Spain is making it clear that they're choosing the ethical path.
Absolutely. They're setting an example for the rest of the world to follow.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion about Spain's influence on the EU's approach to AI regulation, but I'm eager to see how these principles are actually being applied in specific sectors.
Me too. That's where the rubber really hits the road.
So in part 3, we'll delve into some real-world examples of how Spain is putting these principles into practice.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into AI regulation in Spain.
I'm ready.
We've talked about the principles, the framework, the EU influence.
A lot to cover.
A lot to cover. So now it's time to see how all of this actually plays out in the real world.
Exactly. How are these principles being put into practice in different sectors?
Yeah, let's get specific. So where should we start?
Well, healthcare seems like a good place to begin.
Yeah, AI has the potential to revolutionize healthcare, but it also raises some serious ethical questions.
Absolutely. And Spain is really focused on making sure that AI-powered medical devices and diagnostic tools are both reliable and safe.
Well, of course, you don't want any glitches when it comes to people's health.
Exactly. So they've implemented some pretty rigorous testing and certification processes for AI systems used in healthcare.
So like similar to how new drugs and medical devices are regulated.
Exactly. They're making sure that these AI systems are accurate, effective, and most importantly, won't harm patients.
That makes sense. Safety first. But I imagine data privacy is also a big concern in healthcare.
Oh, huge patient data is incredibly sensitive. And Spain has very strict regulations on how this data can be used to train and develop AI systems.
So it's a balancing act between fostering innovation and protecting patient privacy.
Exactly. And one way they're striking that balance is by emphasizing transparency.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
Well, for example, patients have the right to know if an AI system is involved in their diagnosis or treatment.
Oh, that's interesting. So no secret AI doctors making decisions behind the scenes.
Exactly. Patients need to be informed, and they also have the right to access information about how that AI system was developed and validated.
So it's about empowering patients, giving them more control over their healthcare, even when AI is involved.
Precisely, it's about making sure that AI is used to enhance human decision-making, not replace it.
Okay, so healthcare is one area where we're seeing these principles in action. What about other sectors?
Well, finance is another big one.
Right. AI is transforming everything from lending to investing.
Exactly. And there are some potential risks there too, algorithms making biased decisions or causing market instability.
Yeah, those are some scary headlines.
Exactly. So Spain is focusing on ensuring that AI systems used in finance are fair, transparent, and accountable.
Okay. So how do they do that?
Well, for example, they're requiring financial institutions to provide clear explanations for how AI systems are being used in lending decisions, risk assessments, fraud detection.
So more hiding behind complex algorithms.
Precisely, people need to understand how AI is affecting their financial lives.
And what about bias? Are there safeguards in place to make sure that AI systems aren't perpetuating existing biases in the financial system?
Yes, absolutely. Spain is actively monitoring AI systems for signs of bias, and they have mechanisms to investigate and address any discriminatory outcomes.
So they're not just setting the rules and hoping for the best. They're actually keeping a close eye on things.
Exactly. And that's really important because AI can easily amplify existing biases if we're not careful.
Okay, we've talked about healthcare and finance. What about transportation?
Oh, that's a fascinating one. AI is playing a huge role in transportation with self-driving cars, smart traffic systems, all sorts of innovations.
Yeah, it's a really exciting area, but also one where safety is paramount.
Absolutely. And Spain is developing regulations for the testing and deployment of autonomous vehicles with a big focus on cybersecurity, data privacy, and liability in case of accident.
Those are some tough questions, especially when you're dealing with a technology that's essentially making life or death decisions.
Exactly. And they're also exploring the use of AI in smart traffic management systems.
Okay, so like using AI to optimize traffic flow and reduce congestion.
Exactly. But they're doing so with an awareness of the potential privacy implications.
Where no one wants to feel like they're being constantly tracked by Big Brother.
Exactly. So they're implementing safeguards to protect people's data and make sure that these systems are used responsibly and ethically.
So from healthcare to finance to transportation, it seems like Spain is really committed to harnessing the power of AI for good.
They are, and they're not shying away from the ethical challenges.
They're tackling them head on, which is really impressive to see.
It's inspiring, and I think it's a model for other countries to follow.
I agree. It's a reminder that we have a choice in how we shape the future of AI.
We do, and Spain is showing us that it's possible to create a future where AI is used to benefit society as a whole.
Well said. And to our listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into AI regulation in Spain. It's a complex topic, but one that's incredibly important as AI continues to transform our world.
It is, and we encourage you to stay informed, engage in these conversations, and demand that AI be used ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. The future of AI is in our hands. So let's make sure we shape it wisely.
Well said.
Until next time, keep exploring.